What you're about to hear was so disturbing. Netflix viewers paused the screen just to breathe, because this wasn't a crime committed by a stranger. It wasn't random, and it wasn't sudden. It was committed by someone who was trusted. And once you hear how it happened, you'll never look at people the same way again. If evil was sitting across from you right now, would you recognize it? This is not just another true crime story. This is one of Netflix's darkest cases. A case that proves the most dangerous monsters don't hide in shadows. They hide in plain sight. Welcome back to the channel. Tonight's story is slow, disturbing, and deeply unsettling, because nothing about it feels fake. No dramatic music could make this scarier. The truth is enough. Before we go any further, like this video if you're ready for a story that will haunt you. And subscribe, because part 2 reveals a truth that shocked even veteran detectives. Now listen carefully. Everything about this case started with normal. A normal street, a normal home, normal people. Neighbors waved, smiles were exchanged. Nothing seemed out of place. And that's what makes this case terrifying. Because evil didn't break in. It was already inside. How much do you really know about the lives happening behind closed doors? As investigators later discovered, the warning signs were there, but no one connected the dots. Small arguments dismissed as stress, silence mistaken for peace, control mistaken for love. This crime didn't explode overnight. It was quietly forming, day by day, right in front of everyone. And by the time someone noticed, it had already crossed the point of no return. Then came the day that changed everything. A call was made, authorities arrived, and what they found inside that home left seasoned officers speechless. This was no accident, no misunderstanding. This was something far darker, and the person responsible, someone no one suspected. If the killer was someone you trusted, would you ever see it coming? If this story already feels unsettling, comment part 2 below, because what investigators uncovered next is where this case truly becomes a nightmare. As police began questioning everyone involved, one story stood out. It sounded rehearsed, too calm, too perfect. That was the moment detectives realized they weren't chasing a crime. They were untangling a lie. And that lie was hiding something far worse than murder. What you'll hear in the next part includes a secret kept hidden for years, a betrayal that stunned investigators, and the exact moment police realized this case would haunt them forever. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now, because part 2 exposes the truth no one was prepared to face. This story doesn't just give you chills. It changes how you see trust, family, and the people closest to you. Part 2 is darker. Part 2 is disturbing. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. By the time detectives realized they were being lied to, someone had already gotten away with murder. And the scariest part, the lie sounded completely believable. How easy do you think it is to lie when you've rehearsed it for years? Interrogation rooms are designed to break lies. Bright lights, cold silence, every word recorded. But in this case, the suspect walked in calm, collected, and disturbingly confident. No shaking hands, no panic, just the story, told perfectly. At first, investigators thought this would be an easy case. They were wrong. The timeline sounded clean. The emotions felt controlled. Too controlled. This person described tragedy, without pain, no cracks in the voice, no confusion. And for experienced detectives, that's a red flag, because real shock is messy, real grief is chaotic. This wasn't. Can someone fake emotions, or does the truth always leak out? If you're following closely, like this video right now, because what comes next is where this case starts to unravel. And subscribe so you don't miss part 3, where the biggest secret is exposed. As investigators dug deeper, they noticed something unsettling. This wasn't the first incident. It wasn't even the second. There was a pattern. Missed warnings, ignored red flags, people who spoke up and were silenced. What looked like a single crime was actually the final chapter of something much darker. And suddenly, this wasn't just about what happened, but how long it had been happening. Then came a discovery, a detail so small, most people would have missed it. But once detectives noticed it, they couldn't unsee it. The story collapsed, the timeline fell apart, the alibi no longer worked. This wasn't a mistake. This was intentional. If someone carefully plans a crime, do you think guilt ever reaches them? This was the moment. Detectives stopped treating the suspect as a witness and started seeing them as something far more dangerous. Because the truth was clear now. This person didn't panic after the crime. They prepared for it. And that preparation is what made this case so terrifying. Comment truth if you think lies are always exposed in the end, because in part 3, we reveal how this lie finally cracked and what investigators uncovered next shocked the entire country. Experts later explained something chilling. This wasn't rage. This was an impulse. This was control. The kind of control that grows slowly, feeds on silence, and explodes when no one is watching. And once that control is threatened, violence becomes inevitable. That's what makes this case unforgettable. Not just the crime, but the mindset behind it. But what investigators uncovered next was worse than anyone imagined, because the crime wasn't the beginning. It was the cover-up. If this story is getting under your skin, subscribe now, because part 3 exposes the secret that completely changed this investigation. In the next part, you'll hear the mistake that exposed the killer, the evidence that destroyed the lie, and the moment justice finally caught up. This story doesn't just give you chills. It proves how close danger can be, without anyone noticing. Part 3 is where everything breaks. By the time investigators uncovered the next truth, there was no room left for doubt. This wasn't a tragic misunderstanding. This wasn't a moment of lost control. This was calculated. And once you hear how close the truth came to staying buried forever, you'll understand why this case still haunts everyone involved. How many crimes do you think go unsolved simply because no one looks closely enough? The breakthrough didn't come from a dramatic confession. It came from pressure, hours of silence, replayed footage, statements compared line by line. That perfect story, the one that sounded rehearsed, started falling apart. Investigators noticed small inconsistencies, minutes that didn't match, details that changed depending on who was listening. Not enough to accuse, but enough to dig deeper. Then came the evidence no one expected. A single overlooked detail, something so ordinary it had been ignored from the start. But when forensic experts re-examined it, the entire case shifted. The timeline collapsed. Suddenly, the suspect couldn't have been where they claimed. The alibi wasn't just weak, it was impossible. If one tiny detail can destroy a lie, how many lies are we surrounded by every day? This was the moment investigators realized they weren't dealing with panic or regret. They were dealing with intent. The crime scene told a different story now. One of planning, control, and preparation. Nothing here was accidental. And the most disturbing part, the suspect didn't break. No tears, no emotional collapse, just silence. That silence spoke louder than any confession. If you're still watching, like this video, because part 4 reveals the final truth and how justice finally caught up. And subscribe now, so you don't miss the conclusion. As pressure mounted, the suspect's behavior changed. Not fear, defensiveness. Answers became shorter. Eye contact disappeared. The calm confidence was gone. Experts say this moment is critical, when a person realizes they're no longer in control of the narrative. And control, in this case, was everything. Do you think people fear being caught or being exposed for who they truly are? Investigators reconstructed the final hours, step by step, minute by minute, and what they uncovered was chilling. This wasn't an act of desperation. This was a decision made long before that day. A choice, which meant the person responsible had lived a double life. Smiling, blending in, pretending, all while knowing what they were capable of. The public didn't know yet. The neighbors didn't know. Even close friends were in shock, because the image everyone trusted was a lie, and that lie was about to collapse. Comment exposed if you believe. The truth always finds its way out, no matter how carefully it's hidden. What happened next is something investigators describe as the moment the case turned irreversible. Evidence aligned. Statements contradicted each other. The final piece fell into place, and suddenly, there was nowhere left to hide. In the final part, you'll hear the moment the truth was revealed publicly, the reaction no one expected, and the haunting lesson this case left behind. Because this story doesn't just give you chills, it forces you to question how well we really know the people closest to us. Part 4 is the end, and it's the most disturbing part of all. Subscribe now. You won't want to miss how this story truly ends. By the time the truth was finally revealed, there was no dramatic music, no cinematic moment, just silence. The kind of silence that fills a room when everyone realizes they were wrong, because the person standing at the center of this case was no longer a suspect. They were exposed. Back-end index pointing right. Final question before we continue. How do you accept the truth when it destroys everything you believed? When the evidence was presented, there was no escape. Every lie had been mapped. Every contradiction documented. Every excuse dismantled. This wasn't a theory anymore. It was a timeline. Clear, detailed, and undeniable. And for the first time, the mask slipped. Those who watched closely noticed it. A shift in posture. A change in breathing. Eyes that no longer met the room. Not fear of punishment, but fear of being seen. Because once the truth is exposed, there's no hiding from who you really are. Thumbs up if you've stayed until the end. Tap like. Not for the algorithm, but for the victims whose stories deserve to be remembered. And subscribe now, because every story on this channel is told with respect, depth, and truth. The verdict didn't bring relief. It brought clarity. Friends questioned every memory. Neighbors replayed conversations in their minds. Families wondered how they missed the signs. This case didn't just end a life. It shattered trust. And that's the part most people don't talk about. In interviews that followed, investigators admitted something unsettling. The crime itself was horrific, but the aftermath was worse, because it forced everyone involved to confront an uncomfortable reality. Evil doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks familiar. Sometimes it looks kind. Sometimes it looks just like someone you know. Would you notice the warning signs, or would you explain them away too? The story spread quickly, not because of how violent it was, but because of how close it felt. Viewers didn't see a criminal. They saw a reflection of normal life, and that terrified them. That's why this case still lingers, not as entertainment, but as a warning. Comment, remember, if you believe stories like this should never be forgotten, because remembering is how we learn, and learning is how we stay aware. This wasn't just one of Netflix's darkest true crime stories. It was a reminder that danger doesn't always announce itself, that silence can be a red flag, and that trusting blindly can come at a devastating cost. If this story gave you chills, then it did its job. Stay aware, stay curious, and never ignore your instincts, because sometimes the darkest stories are the ones that feel the most familiar.